Hello, what you are looking at here is an air skimmer. It literally skims across the surface. We are going to use these in the hallway to kind of launch them and see how far we can get them to go. But you can see that this is made of four different pieces. One, two air fins, then we've got the air scoop at the bottom, and then we've got the main body all the way across. And if you look at that on a sheet of paper, here are the four parts we're going to make. So we've got the main body, we've got the air scoop, and then we've got two fins. Okay, so let's talk about how we're going to do this. In order to really understand what we're making here, we are basically taking an air scoop and attaching it at the bottom. And what that's going to do is allow us to have a narrow opening in the front and a wider opening at the back. And that's going to allow air to flow through this. And as it does, it's going to kind of hold the nose down on the surface so that it doesn't kind of flip up in the air as it's traveling. Okay. You also notice that there's a paper clip on the bottom. That paper clip is going to hook to a piece of rubber band. And that rubber band, when it gets stretched back with that paper clip, will launch it forward. Okay, so let's get started. We'll come back to the sample here and there. But for today, we want to make all the parts. So we're going to start with our directions, which show our dimensions. Okay, you can see we've got the main body here. And by the way, if for some reason the screen disconnects, be patient. It's been disconnecting on me. It's very frustrating. So anyway, we've got the main body, we've got the air scoop, and then we've got two of these fins. Okay, you'll notice if I zoom in here, the air scoop is kind of a trapezoid shape, and then it starts with a square that's 3 inches by 3 inches. We're going to actually start with that. But you'll notice on the bottom, it extends out 3/8 on this side and 3/8 on this side. But at the top, it's only 1/8 of an inch on each side. But by doing that, it forms this diagonal line. Oh, see, there we go. Let me see if I can get this back here. There we go. I might have to do that several times. I don't know what's going on with my document camera. Anyway, so we've got this air scoop, and these dashed lines here are actually going to be fold lines. Okay, so don't cut those. You're only cutting solid lines. Just like up here, these dash lines are all just going to be fold lines. Okay, so you want to make sure you don't cut those. So some of the other things you're going to need beyond the diagram is you're going to need a sheet of paper. This is cardstock. It's pretty thick. You only get one of these, so make sure you are careful as you measure this. If you really make a lot of mistakes and you can't erase it, just turn it over. All right. So you're going to need a ruler. You're going to need a pencil. Probably need an extra eraser unless you've got a good one on the back of your pencil or you don't make a lot of mistakes. You'll need a ballpoint pen. Okay. You will need some scissors. Okay. The ballpoint pen and the scissors we'll deal with next, but let's start with the ruler. So we're going to start with the main body. And again, the main body, where'd my pencil go? The main body is a total of 11 inches long. Well, the good thing here is that if you measure this cardstock, hopefully if you have an accurate ruler, you'll see that the cardstock is exactly 11 inches long. So you actually don't have to make that initial measurement. But you do have to make these measurements, all right? So we're going to start with that and refer back to the sheet often. So I'm going to start with the 4-inch mark. And if you look on my sample, I just simply measured up from the bottom corner up 4 inches. That way I can use this nice, crisp, manufactured corner and edge, and I know it's going to be accurate. All right, so let's start with that. Let's turn our ruler, and by the way, make sure you are not on centimeters. Make sure you flip it around and are inches. Okay, so let's measure from the bottom up. I'm going to start in the bottom corner. It's very awkward to do under this camera here. Let me zoom in a little bit. And I'm going to measure to 4 inches and make a little mark. Okay. I'm also going to make, this is really hard to do with this small space. Let me zoom back out. I'm also going to mark So there's my 4-inch mark right there. Okay. I'm also going to make a mark right here at 1/2 of an inch. Okay. And then I'm also going to make a mark at 3/2 of an inch. 3.5 inches. You'll see why in a minute. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, I'm going off the bottom edge of the paper. So I'm going to go 1/2 inch mark, skip up to 3.5 inch mark, and then 4-inch mark. Okay. So what I've got is these little marks, and those are going to guide me as I draw the rest of this. So if you look here, we've got a solid line up here at the 4-inch mark. So that's what we're going to make here. So take your ruler, you already got a mark there, and you've got a mark there at 4 inches, and line it up as carefully as you can, and really hold it tight with this hand here. Okay, so you can see I spread my fingers out to help hold it tight. Now I can use my pencil without moving the ruler and simply draw a solid line across that 4-inch mark. Okay? And if you're not sure if you did it right, just simply measure. It should be 4 inches all the way across. Okay? Just like that. Next, we're going to make a partially solid line, and then the rest of it's going to be dashed line, but we're going to do that at that 3.5 inch mark. So the way to do this is line up your ruler, okay? Make sure your 0 is on the edge of the paper, okay? And then we're going to mark a line right there, 3 inches solid. So I'm going to stop right at 3 inches, and then the rest of it is going to be dashed like this, okay? And you may have heard me say earlier that the dashed line is going to be a fold line, and that's why we mark it differently with dashes, okay? So you can see I went 3 inches solid, and then the rest of the way dashed. We're going to do the exact same thing on this bottom mark, okay? Line it up with this mark, line it up with that mark. Take your time and do it perfectly. This is engineering class, and I'm really taking my time. And then we're going to mark over 3 inches solid, so stop right on 3, and then dashed from there, just like this. The sizes of the dashes really don't matter as long as you can see that it is dashed, okay? If we look back on this, we need a dashed line here, okay? That's pretty simple. Where you stopped your solid line before, right here, you can mark up your ruler and line it up with your other solid line and make a dashed line here, because that is also going to be a fold, okay? That is pretty much it for our main body. So you can see from our sample, that's exactly what we did, okay? We've got dashed lines and solid lines, okay? So now we're going to skip up to the fins, okay? So we need to make 2 of these right here, all right? You'll notice that it is 3 inches this way, 3 inches this way, and then a 1/2 inch up and a 1/2 inch in, and then we simply connect it with a diagonal line. So you do not need to know the length of this diagonal line. It's really not important as long as you go in a 1/2 inch and up a 1/2 inch, okay? Again, on my paper, I'm going to use that nice factory corner, that nice edge that it has, because it's going to make me more accurate that way. So up in the corner, this I will zoom in a little bit, we want to measure in 1/2 of an inch and make a tiny little mark at the top, just like that, okay? Then along the side, we're going to measure down 3 inches, just like this, and make a little mark, okay? So I've got a mark at 1/2 inch and a mark at 3 inches, okay? On my 3-inch mark, I'm going to make my ruler as straight as I possibly can, and you can use this little line down here on your main body as kind of a reference to get your ruler nice and parallel. But I'm going to measure over 3 inches and draw a line like this, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm making this. You can see the 3 inches in, okay? Next, from the end of that 3 inches, I need to draw up a 1/2 inch. So I actually put the line on my 1/2 inch mark, and I'm going to draw from the 0 up to it. Okay, you could flip your ruler around the other way. It's going to do the same thing. Okay, so now I've measured up a 1/2 inch. Now I simply take my original mark up here, line up my ruler, take my mark down here, line up my ruler, and then I'm going to make a nice diagonal line. And there you go. That's going to be my fin. All right, that's one of them. Now we need to make another one. Okay, so give it a little space here. We're not talking much, just a little bit. And draw a 3-inch line straight down. We don't have a factory edge now because we've moved over on the paper, so you're going to have to draw your own 3-inch line. Okay. Then from there, keeping my ruler parallel with the main body, I'm going to draw over 3 inches. Okay. And again, that's this corner here. We're making that. Okay. So back up at the top, I'm going to measure over a 1/2 inch, make a little mark. Okay. And then down here, and pause the video as you need to so you can keep up. Down here, again, I'm going to measure up 1/2 inch and draw my line. Okay? 1/2 inch. Then, like before, I'm simply going to connect those marks. Okay? So now I've got fin number 1, fin number 2. If you want to check your work, this distance right here should be 1/2 inch. This distance right here and this distance right here should both be 3 inch. Okay, and then this should be 1/2 inch as well. Again, it does not matter the length of the diagonal, okay, because we just connected them. Now is one of the most crucial points. We need to make this air scoop, okay? You can see by not moving over this second fin too much that you have a lot of room, and you need to make sure you leave yourself with a lot of room, okay? So here are the dimensions of the air scoop right here. So we need a 3-inch by 3-inch square in the middle, okay, with dashed lines on the sides. We need to measure over 3/8 of an inch on the bottom and over 1/8 of an inch on the top, and then connect them with a diagonal, okay? So this gets a little tricky because you want to make sure you have room. So I want to start my 3-inch box somewhere in here so that I have a little bit of room over on this side and I have a little bit of room on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and measure over from the corner here. And I'm going to measure over, let's say, 1/2 of an inch. And I'm just going to put a dot, just a dot. Okay, that tells me where to start my box. Okay, so along that dot from the top, be nice and perpendicular to this line if you can. Get your ruler nice as straight as you possibly can. We're going to make a dashed line just like this, 3 inches. And we're going to stop that dashed line as soon as we get to 3 inches, which is right there. Okay? Across the bottom, again, use your main body as a reference line. Make your ruler nice and parallel to that. This time we're going to do a solid line, not dashed. So exactly 3 inches, okay? Just like that. Stop at 3. If you did things nice and straight and nice and perpendicular, this measurement here should be 3 inches. You might be slightly off if you got your line crooked. If it's close, it should be okay. If it's really off, you might want to erase it and do this again, okay? So now I'm going to measure back down 3 inches. And I'm going to use a dashed line this time. Okay? Just like that. So now you can see I've got that, you can see I've got that square with the dashed sides, just like that. So now we need to measure over 3/8 of an inch here, 3/8 of an inch here, 1/8 and 1/8. Okay, this is where your measurement knowledge has to come into play. So let me zoom in on my ruler and give you a quick refresher. On an inch, every other tick mark is 1/8 of an inch. So on this inch, if I'm going to 3/8 of an inch, it's going to be right here. right above that H, okay? Your ruler may look different, but it's every other tick mark, 1, 2, 3/8, okay? If I'm doing 1/8, it's just this first one here, okay? Every other tick mark, 1/8. This, don't get confused, as you already know, this is a 1/16 of an inch. That's smaller. We need an 1/8 of an inch. So again, 3/8, 1/8, okay? Let's zoom back out and draw, oops, I went the wrong way. Let's draw those marks. All right, so across the bottom, this is the line I'm going for. So I'm going to line up the bottom of my air scoop, just like that, okay? And I'm going to move my ruler so that I'm right on that 3/8 of an inch mark, right there, okay? And then I'm going to simply extend a line to the 0. So that extension is now exactly 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, only this time I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to draw up to 3/8 of an inch right here, okay? So I go a little bit further. Now on the top, we're doing the same thing, but we're doing 1/8 of an inch, all right? So here's the 1/8 of an inch mark. Move my ruler a little bit more, and then we're going to make a mark, okay? And then we're going to do the same thing over here. 1/8 of an inch right here. So you can see it's definitely narrow up here, wide at the bottom. Again, you don't need to know the length of the diagonals. You simply connect. Sorry, I got to get this positioned right. You just simply connect the ends, just like that. 3/8, 1/8. And do the same thing over here. We're going to line up our ruler and connect it. Now I see this a lot. If for some reason your angle comes right to this point here, you need to erase that line and redo it. You need to have that 1/8 of an inch there. If it comes right to this point here instead, when you go to do your air scoop on your air skimmer, this front section will be like smushed together and it won't allow air through. So it's important to make sure you have 1/8 here, 3/8 here on both sides, okay? So now if we go back, we have all our parts, all right? This is a lot of work, and I realize you'll probably have to stop the video from time to time and pause it or maybe even go back, but this is what you should end up with, and now we're ready to actually start cutting out. Now, as a reminder, these lines here, these dashed lines, those are fold lines, okay? We do not cut them. So what we're going to do is take our scissors, okay, and let me zoom out a little bit more if I can. Nope, that's as far as it zooms. Okay, now again, I want to cut solid lines only. So I'm going to start with this main body and I'm going to cut right to this mark right here, okay, not past it. There we go. And then we're going to do the same thing here. Okay. Then we're going to cut the whole side here, okay? So I'm just trying to do this as carefully as I can. All the little details matter with this activity. You need to make sure it's as accurate as possible. So this is our main body, okay? You can see that I did cut an opening in the back, just 3 inches. That's why our solid line ended there. Now I'll set that aside and let's cut the rest of them. I'm going to cut this whole bottom part all at once because they are all 3 inches from the top. Makes it pretty easy. Again, the size of our cardstock is actually really convenient because it's already 11 inches across and it makes it pretty simple to work with. Okay, so now let's cut these out. I don't think I need to go over how to do that. I think you know how to use the scissors to make cuts, but it is important to be very cautious that you are obviously being safe, but also that you're being very accurate with your cuts. The little things do matter when you go to launch this. If you have issues with how you cut or how you measured, it will likely affect the performance of your air skimmer when we go to launch these. So there I've got my 2 fins, and carefully cut the air scoop. Okay, and one more. There's all my parts. All right, now I said before that we want to use a ballpoint pen, and I'll explain why. A ballpoint pen has a nice little like ball bearing on the very tip of it. It's really going to be hard to see here. It does not matter if your ballpoint pen is actually drawing ink or not. What we're trying to do is we want to go over our dash lines and press firmly, and what that's going to do is create a little indentation in the paper and allow you to make nice crisp folds. Okay, it's probably not something everybody does, but I think it makes a much nicer end product. So you're going to want to take your ruler, line it up on your dash line. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, line it up on your dash line, hold the ruler firmly, and then I want you to take the ballpoint pen and simply go over that line. Okay, go over it. It doesn't matter that it's not dashed anymore. What we're trying to do is press hard and create an indentation. Do the same thing on the other side with the dash line. Okay, line it up carefully. Take your time. Fold it. Draw on that fold line. So now, because we've actually pressed the fibers of the paper down, when you go to fold this, and I'm going to fold this kind of backwards like this, look at that nice crisp line you get there. It folds perfectly on that edge, and that's because you've scored it and you've kind of indented it so that it can do that. That's why we go over it with a pen. Okay, so now we've got a nice clean air scoop. Okay, the fins don't have any folds, so we can leave those aside. But now we need to go over the dash lines of the main body. Okay, so take your ruler, put it on that dash line. Okay, line it up carefully. Don't rush through that part. Draw firmly. If you want to draw a couple times like this, that might help. You don't want to press so hard that it rips the paper, but you do want to press firmly. And then do the same thing at your 3-inch mark. Notice how I did not draw all the way across it. I just did where the dashed line was. And then do that last line on the bottom. Again, take your time lining up your ruler carefully. Get a good firm grip on it so that it does not slide around. Draw carefully. Just like that. Go over it a couple times. All right, and then where you have that pen mark, you're now going to make a nice little fold. So I like to start in the back. Just this one, we're not folding all the way down. We just want to tip it a little, okay? Just like that. You don't have to fold it 90 degrees, just tip it a little bit. But the sides, yes, you're going to have to kind of grab onto the paper and fold the sides. I can't stress enough how important it is to have those nice crisp lines, and that's what the pen gives you. You don't have to use a ballpoint pen. You can use any pen, but ballpoints tend to do a little bit nicer, cleaner job. And then fold it on your other one, and there you go. You have a nice crisp fold, and your main body is ready to position. So eventually, when we get to the assembly video, you're going to put your fins like this, okay? You're going to put your air scoop underneath like this. This is why the measurement's so important. If your air scoop's not the same size width-wise of your main body, it's not going to work. And again, it's going to be sitting in there just like that. We'll tape it up, we'll put some glue on it, and then we'll be ready to launch with a paper clip in the middle. So this is pretty much it. The key to this video is, and this portion of it, is making sure your measurement is accurate and careful, and making sure your folds are crisp and clean, and that you hold your ruler carefully. If you make any mistakes, back up, erase them, and try them again. Don't just continue with your mistakes, because it will cause you trouble down the road. All right, so good job with this part. Your next video is going to show you how to assemble everything together.